Hello and welcome to the Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Aiton, and my co-host James Batchelor. We are here to discuss another Watford victory. It's Watford's second victory in 17 games. It's 3 points on the board. If I'm totally honest, I was not expecting that at all, especially after the abysmal performance at Molineux midweek for 4-0 defeat Thursday night. 3-0 down after 20 minutes. I thought Southampton is going to be a tough place to go to at the weekend, and I was not looking forward to it one bit. But before we get into the game, I'll go over to James. James, how are you doing, mate? You all good?
Yeah, I'm all good. Lovely sunny weather today. Nearly finished my my Troy Deeney autobiography. It's taken me a couple of weeks because, let's just say, I'm a very slow reader. But yeah, I enjoyed reading that today. And obviously, Ben, it's a Monday. Mondays are usually the most depressing day of the week. But obviously, Watford getting a fantastic win at the weekend. Cucho Hernandez with the 2 goals. So yeah, I woke up today feeling very happy, very positive, and actually, I think it's good that we won because we've got such a long break in between games now. I think it's 2.5, 3 weeks, isn't it? And we don't want to be going into that break, on the back of a heavy defeat, if you will. So yeah, really happy with the result, and yeah, the weather's looking good as well. Spring is on its way.
I love the spring, mate, as well. All the daffodils are out now. Blue skies, the trees are growing their leaves again. It's just a good time of the year, isn't it? It's starting to get a bit lighter in the evenings and in the mornings. Your day's getting a bit extended because you don't really want to do anything when it's about 5 o'clock and it's dark, do you? So at least when it's the light is getting better each day, so you can actually do more, which is really good. But yeah, like you say, we're here to discuss 3 points of Watford, a massive victory at Southampton. I know the scoreline was only 2-1, but performance-wise, James, that was really well executed for a game plan, really, wasn't it? It was just a really good, solid performance.
Yeah, it was, and I think the first half, especially, I was really impressed with. I thought Watford, finally, ever since Ranieri got sacked, we've kind of lacked, the high press in our team, and actually, I thought we pressed Southampton really well, especially in that first half. And actually, the press and the work rate from the Watford players actually led to Cucho Hernandez's first goal, which obviously we'll discuss in a little bit. But yeah, overall, the game management by Roy Hodgson was fantastic. I did question his starting lineup. When it came out, yes, Tom Cleverley was dropped, which I was happy about. Cucho come in, which I was not so happy about. But obviously, Cucho had a fantastic game as well. So overall, I'm delighted. It was unexpected because obviously coming off the back of that Wolves performance, I thought that was, again, one of the worst we've seen this season. But yeah, an unexpected win down on the south coast in the sunshine. There's not really much more you can ask for, to be honest. I'm just a happy guy. I'm feeling happy. And actually, it's given me, I think it's given everyone, a renewed sense of optimism because apart from Leeds winning, the results have gone our way as well. Watford leveling points with Everton, Ben. So, I don't know about you, but I'm suddenly feeling, a lot more confident about, surviving in the Premier League this season.
It's the hope that kills you, isn't it, really? Watford, you think they're dead and buried. You think relegation is looming. Then Watford managed to pick up 3 points after a 4-0 defeat at Wolves. Came out of nowhere, really, the performance. But it was a fantastic reaction by Roy Hodgson and the boys on the pitch. Just quickly, going into the game, James, there was a lot of talk. I think one of the newspapers actually released an article saying that Roy Hodgson, he was on his way out if he lost at Southampton. I think it was in the Daily Mail. So he needed a result himself, really, didn't he, James?
Yeah, he did. And, I don't know how much, we can read into that article. I think it was just more them putting 2 and 2 together, the nature of how Watford operate and, sacking managers after poor results. But to be fair, I think the Daily Mail do have, a lot of sources at Watford, and they seem to get quite a lot of stories right as well. So, maybe it was true, and maybe, the players, the players clearly are fighting for Roy Hodgson, because otherwise we wouldn't have won the game in the manner we did. So yeah, it was obviously concerning reading that going into the game, but I just think the performance really was fantastic. And actually for me, after the game, Roy Hodgson's comments on the fans and how good they were, he's starting to get that relationship going with the fans as well a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. It's just everything, just we've gone from one extreme to the other. We're really depressed. really
Yeah.
angry, Roy Hodgson go, etc., etc. And now suddenly we're staying up. Everything's fantastic. Cucho got 2 goals, lovely jubbly. So yeah, I'm just happy, and I think that story, as I said, it's just I think it's just one of those things where they're just assuming we'll do something because we have done previously. So I don't think we can read too much into that really.
Yeah, I think it's a case of just looking at Watford's history more than maybe knowing what's actually going to happen with the situation with Roy Hodgson. Obviously, we go through managers like no tomorrow, and when there's a bad run of form, it's sooner or later the manager's going to get the sack, isn't he? Really. So I think, but like you say, they've got good sources. They actually announced about the Claudio Ranieri. He was on a small time frame left to keep his job about 2 weeks before he actually lost his job, and they reported that before the Watford Observer and Adam Leventhal. So they do have sources in high places, so possibly they heard inklings that maybe Roy Hodgson was going to go. But he clearly does have a respect for the players, James, from what I've seen in especially our away performances. He does get them quite drilled, and he does have the respect for the players. And I don't know if that's because he's an experienced coach, but he just seems to get the players working for him, especially away from home. It's just how we turn that into home form now, isn't it, James?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was watching, Ben Foster's podcast, and I obviously watched some of Ben Foster's vlogs as well. And, he obviously talks about, his time at England under Roy Hodgson. Cleverley mentioned it as well. And I think the English players probably especially have a good relationship with Roy. But even reading some of the comments by some of the foreign lads, Cucho, Dennis, reading their comments, that the club have posted on the website, they do respect Roy. And, they say his training sessions are great. They're constantly drilling things into them. And actually, he's been here for 8 or 9 games now, and maybe, it's taken that long, for his philosophy to come through. I'm probably jumping the gun a bit there because we could absolutely get thrashed by Liverpool, and we could be sitting here very sad and depressed again. But that was definitely the best overall performance I've seen under Roy Hodgson. And you mentioned the home form there. I think in terms of away form, I think we're 15th or 14th in the Premier League, which is really, really good. But really, our home form has hindered us this season. I mean, Gary Iron in chat says our home games are so vital now, and in April especially, we've got Leeds, we've got Burnley, we've got Everton at home. So if we can keep up this away form, and I know it's a long shot, if we can then win them home games, we would then be safe in the Premier League, and that is it really. Once some home games have been played and we kind of know where we stand, then I do think unfortunately we will know what division we're in. But hopefully, we can get positive results, because Everton looked dreadful. Yes, Leeds picked up the win against Norwich, but I'd expect them to do that. Leeds still concede lots and lots of goals. And yeah, Burnley, Burnley are Burnley. They've struggled this season. So I think them 3 home games in April, especially are key to Watford's season, and ultimately key to our survival hopes as well.
I know it hasn't been pretty lately under Roy Hodgson, and that's why fans are starting to turn against him, especially after his comments came out saying about the fans as well. But he, like you say, he is getting it right away from home. He's played 6 games, Watford have won 2, drawn 2, and lost 2. So we've picked up 8 points in 6 games, and it's just trying to get that into the home form now. And like you say, James, we've got 4 really big home games coming up soon. We've obviously got Leeds United at home, we've got Burnley at home, we've got Brentford at home, and Everton at home. So 4 teams all in the lower half of the table, teams that are going to be in the relegation zone or just finish above that dotted line in the table as well. So that's what we just got to try and find that balance now, where we can get that results in the home form. But like you say, it's given us hope now, this performance away at Southampton. And I think after the Wolves game, especially Thursday night, we were all dead and buried, and I think we was all just accepting relegation, and we just wanted it to be confirmed and just think, I'm just done with this season. But Roy and the boys have produced the goods at St Mary's, and they've given us hope now. We're level on points with Everton. Like you say, Everton have been absolutely dreadful lately. Yes, they've got games in hand, but they've got to win those games in hand. And their fixtures that are coming up for the rest of the season, they don't look good. And I saw a footage of Goodson Park after the final whistle yesterday, and it's very toxic there.
Yeah.
And it's not, well, when they're doing all right, it's a toxic place, but when they're not doing well, it's even worse. And
I just want to jump in on that point about the atmosphere at home grounds, especially because, again, going into our run of games in April, you see the atmosphere at Goodison Park. They're in a relegation battle. The fans might not think it, the players might not think it, but Everton, the massive club that they are in a relegation battle. And when you are struggling like they are, you do need the backing of your home supporters. You must have seen the scenes at Elland Road when Leeds, got that late goal. It was absolutely incredible. Their fans were buzzing, and if we can change the atmosphere at Vicarage Road to be a lot better than it is now for them games coming up in April. The fans can almost, I know it's a cliche saying, but the fans can almost act as the 12th man, and I think that has been an issue, and I think the actual atmosphere at Vicarage Road has probably contributed to some of the results. Yes, obviously the onus is on the players, the manager, and the club as a whole, but it does make it a tiny bit easier for the players if the fans have their backing. So I think hopefully the atmosphere at Vicarage Road will improve in April, but yeah, I think the Everton atmosphere was dreadful. I think I saw the video you're talking about, Ben. That was taken in the stands, and some of the language the Everton fans were using was very questionable to say the least. And actually, thinking about the Everton game, Decore, Richarlison coming back to Vicarage Road, I think that's going to be a really good game to watch, actually. And neither team's going to want to lose, really, are they?
No, and I think there's a bit of a rivalry between Watford and Everton. Between the fans anyway, especially after the whole Marco Silva situation and Richarlison leaving the club. Decore went with our blessing, really. He was a fantastic servant for the club, and he didn't really kick up a fuss. He stayed another year to play for us, and we let him go at the end of the season when we did get relegated, and he went with our blessing. But there's a bit of an edge about Richarlison, isn't there? Whenever he comes back, and or whenever we play against Everton at Goodison, Watford fans are on Richarlison's back, and he rolls around on the floor about 100 times every half an hour. But yeah, there's a bit of a rivalry between the fans, and I think it all came from Everton fans when they came in for Richarlison, wasn't it? And it was like, oh, we'll just buy your best players. We'll buy who we want. We're Everton Football Club. We'll buy who we want. And it's just like, you came into little old Watford and took Richarlison and that, but we've replaced these players, and like we brought in Deulofeu, and I know I'd rather Deulofeu in my team over Richarlison all day long. But yeah, we've massively gone off topic there. Normally we go straight into like the team news and then talk about the game, but maybe we've just spoken about what we'd normally do at the end of the show, so we've done it a bit back to front today. But yes, Southampton 1, Watford 2. There was 3 changes to the Watford team. In came João Pedro, Kushka, and Christian Kabasele. Out went Tom Cleverley, Joshua King, and Craig Cathcart. So the starting lineup for Watford was Ben Foster in goal, Kiko Femili at right back, Christian Kabasele, Samir, and Kamara makes up the back 4. The midfield 3 was Musa Sissoko, Imran Louza, Kushka, and the front 3 was Hernandez, João Pedro, and Emmanuel Dennis. After the performance away at Wolves, James, was you expecting quite a lot of changes? Because if I'm honest, that performance was really woeful, and a lot of players after that performance could have lost their place. And I know Roy Hodgson has said that he's changed the games because how quickly the games have came round. But do you think he's taken players out due to performance levels, but he's not admitting it?
Yeah, I do agree with you, actually. And actually, after the Wolves game, arguably, you could have changed the whole starting 11. It was that bad against Wolves, and Joshua King coming out, Tom Cleverley coming out. I do think they're good professionals. They work hard when they do play for Watford, but I do think they both need some time out of the side. Kabasele coming in for Cathcart as well. I think that's probably more of a fitness thing than anything. Maybe Roy Hodgson, Cathcart playing quite a lot of games, and Kabasele coming in to replace him. But on Joshua King and Tom Cleverley, yes, I do think they were essentially dropped by Roy Hodgson. Obviously, he's not going to explicitly say that in the media, But looking at their performances over the past few weeks, I do think a change was needed in them positions, and ultimately the changes proved to be right, because Watford ended up getting a really I'd say relatively comfortable win. Yes, Southampton had several chances. We rode our luck at times as well, which I think every team does in the Premier League, and I thought it was one of the most comfortable wins this season. Even looking back at the Man United games, the Everton games, I actually think this performance was probably better than them. So yeah, very happy, and arguably, at the time I wasn't necessarily happy with the changes Roy made. I would have much preferred Kayembe in there, but yeah, Roy Hodgson got it absolutely spot on against Southampton. So no complaints from James this week.
That makes a bloody change, mate. But yeah, like you say, it was a comfortable Watford victory. I know we only won by 1 goal, but looking back on the games, Southampton didn't have many opportunities to actually score. I know in the second half they had a James Prowse free kick, which was just dipping a bit too late to go in, wasn't it? It just ended on top of the netting, and then you obviously had the Che Adams header that was fantastic save from Ben Foster. And then in the first half, there was a couple of chances, and they managed to score at the far post in added on time in the first half. But apart from that, they didn't really trouble Watford. Watford kind of dealt with them really well, and that's where I probably see where you're coming from with saying how comfortable it was. It wasn't like we was under pressure the whole entire game. We had spells where we controlled possession, and we actually had Southampton on the back foot, and we looked really dangerous going forward. That front three were causing Southampton a lot of problems, weren't they, James?
Yeah, they were. And Ben Foster said in his post-match interview, it should have been 3 or 4 goals at half-time in Watford's favour. And actually, it should have been. I think, before we come on air, Ben, you mentioned the João Pedro chance. He found himself in a bit of space in the box, and unfortunately, it didn't go in the back of the net. I think Dennis had a chance as well. Second half, Dennis had. I think he found himself in some space, edge of the box, and he should be hitting the target. So I think Watford, if on our day, if we was going to be a bit more clinical, yes, we could have scored 3, 4, 5 goals. Obviously, if that was every week, Watford would be a Champions League team and not a relegation threatened team, and that's ultimately why we're in the position we're in. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching the game. Apart from obviously the ridiculous 10 minutes added time that the referee found out of nowhere. Yeah, I thought it was a good game to watch, end to end. I thought Southampton, looked a little on the beach. They've not really got anything to play for this season. They're not challenging for Europe. They're not, battling against relegation. They're just sitting in that mid-table area, very comfortable. And actually, Watford played them at a good time, really. If that was Southampton, let's say in September, October, the game probably would have been more difficult. You've got to remember we did lose to them at Vicarage Road as well, and we did struggle against them that day. So I do think also Southampton, being quite comfortable in the league, played its part. But that doesn't take anything away from the Watford performance, because we thoroughly deserved to win, in my opinion. And yeah, just as I said, very, very happy.
Yeah, back-to-back defeats for Southampton at home. They obviously lost to Newcastle midweek 2-1, wasn't it? So I think they were going into the game maybe struggling for a bit of form, and maybe Watford turned up, and maybe they went in there with not much respect for Watford, thinking we'll just turn up. It's Watford. We're in the bottom 3. We beat them at Vicarage Road this season. We just need to turn up and take our chances, and we'll win. But Watford, they weren't lying down. Watford really, like I was saying to you before we started recording, I felt like Watford smelt blood just after that chance from João Pedro. When João Pedro found that space in the box and his shot was blocked, it felt like Watford just smelt belief, and they knew they could get out Southampton after that, and they knew that they could create opportunities and trouble them. And it wasn't long after the João Pedro shot that Watford actually scored. It was Southampton doing the very best impression of Watford defending, wasn't it, James? Basically, mistakes at the back, underhit passes, and then João Pedro originally, wasn't it? He was inches away from Forrester's kick out, and he couldn't get his studs onto it, and then he was lying on the floor. But
yeah,
I think Manuel Dennis carried on the press, didn't he? Putting Southampton under the pressure, and then the ball ended up going back to the goalkeeper, but it was under hit, and there was Hernandez, and I've never seen him move so quick. He's quick, but he was lightning to get on the end of that. At first, when I saw it, James, I thought he's either going to get clattered here, and we win a penalty. But I was not expecting him to score from that angle, because he took it quite wide, didn't he? But he finished it superbly. What a finish from Cucho
Yeah,
Hernandez.
it was a really good finish, actually. And actually, on the Fraser Forster quickly, I thought he did have a really, really poor game. Obviously, for the Hernandez goal, Forster should have done much better. And actually, for the second Hernandez goal on the volley, again, that was a Forster's near post. He should really be saving that. So I did think Forster had a bad game, but credit to Hernandez. You know, you mentioned João Pedro there, you know, falling to the floor in disbelief how he didn't get a touch on the ball. But Hernandez kept running, he kept at it. He won the ball. As you say, it went really, really wide. And actually, the angle, I thought would be too tight. I thought he might hit the side netting. I thought he might just blast it over the bar. And on his weaker foot as well, I think that was Hernandez's weaker foot. He just, you know, he just caresses it into the back of the net, if you will. And I couldn't really believe it when it went in, actually. You know, I was delighted, obviously, but it was a very, you know, unexpected goal. And I think, you know, that just sums up Southampton. As I mentioned earlier, you know, they're on the beach. They don't really have anything to play for. And I think that defending showed, really. And, you know, Fraser Forster didn't really cover himself in much glory. But delighted for Hernandez. Obviously, he scored the really poor own goal against Wolves midweek. And I know a lot of fans were quite annoyed about that, me included. But what a couple of weeks he's had. You know, bicycle kick against Arsenal, 2 goals against Southampton. Superb from Hernandez,
isn't it,
you know,
for Hernandez now? Or if you want to count his own goal, 4 and 3.
No, let's just stay with 3 and 3 then. But yeah, you know, it was fantastic by him, and you know, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like Deulofeu, if you will. He just has that tenacity, that work rate. He gets what the club's about as well. He's a very smiley guy. You know, never ever seen him not work hard for the team. So for me personally, really happy that he got that first goal, and that kind of, you know, set the tone for the rest of the Watford performance, really. And ultimately that goal come from Watford, you know, playing, you know, a much higher press than we have in previous games. You know, it reminded me of Ranieri when we played the likes of Chelsea, City, where we did lose the games, but the press on show was fantastic, and I think we did show that against Southampton yesterday as well.
I think going into this game, we've spoken about it before, but Watford have really struggled to win games without Ismaila Sarr. But Cucho Hernandez has really stepped up since Ismaila Sarr has been injured. He's really taken his shirt off him, hasn't he? And it's going to be difficult for Sarr to come back into this side. I know how well he does perform, but he's a bit inconsistent. Sometimes it's frustrating where he doesn't beat his man, but he does have that moment of brilliance where he's just like, you just applaud him, and it's like, that's the Sarr we want, but we want him for 90 minutes. But Cucho Hernandez, he is, we've said about how he's been an impact sub, but he's starting to perform for 90 minutes, isn't he, James? And we're starting to see the benefits of him playing week in, week out, because the performance levels and him off the ball as well, I must add, defensively, his work rate's brilliant as well.
Yeah, we are starting to see him perform, you know, on a consistent basis over the full course of a match. And, you know, you mentioned it will be difficult for Ismaila Sarr to get back into the team. I do think Ismaila Sarr is still a must start for Watford. I think that's evident for everyone, you know, the talent he possesses. I do think he is, you know, the most talented player in our squad at the moment. However, you know, there is a lot of competition for places there. You've got Hernandez, Pedro, Dennis, you know, Cucho Hernandez as well, and Joshua King, you know, when he's firing as well. So there's a lot of competition for places. There is only 3 spots. And actually, on current form, Emmanuel Dennis is probably the person
He's got 1 in 10. He's got 1 goal in 10 games, I saw the other day. So stats-wise, it's not great, but he is our leading goal scorer as well. Would you go as far as maybe taking him out the team when Ismaila Sarr's fit?
Well, I don't really want to answer this. I don't want to answer this question in case I get absolutely slated on Twitter. It's a very difficult one. You know, Emmanuel Dennis still offered a lot yesterday. I think with Dennis, he is getting in the right positions. It's just his decision making at times can be questionable. But he set up the ball to Kuchka to put the cross in for Cucho's, you know, second goal. So he got a pre-assist, if you will. If that counts, I don't know if it does. But yeah, I think Dennis still offers the Watford team lots. You know, Cucho Hernandez obviously had the finishing touch against Southampton, but I don't think it's going to be too long until Dennis starts scoring again. I think he has been unlucky in some instances. Against Wolves, he was poor, but as was everyone. it's difficult. So you can't
He's a
drop.
threat with Emmanuel Dennis, isn't he? Because every time he gets the ball, he just runs at the opposition's fullbacks, and he gets them thinking. And I think you need that in the side. I don't think he's going to be the one to maybe drop out. I do think it's hard for Joshua King to maybe warrant a start after seeing how well, like João Pedro did yesterday, how João Pedro would hold the ball up and link up well with the other players. So I think the one person who's going to struggle to keep his place at the moment is Joshua King. Maybe Cucho might come out the side if Ismaila Sarr's fit, but at least, like we say, we've got people who are stepping up now, and Cucho's definitely taken the opportunity. I did like how they linked up well yesterday, Cucho Hernandez and João Pedro. Rudy Clark-Johnson's put a comment in the chat saying Cucho and Pedro were brilliant going forward yesterday, and I totally agree. I love how they carry the ball forward. They get you up the pitch quickly, and that's what you need. And another one from Gary Iron as well, saying I thought Kuka was very good, had a very good game, and that allowed Loser to play better. James, Kuka came back into the side, in for Tom Cleverley. You noticed his presence straight away in that midfield, didn't you? And he was barging into challenges, and he was getting forward. What I liked about him, he was getting forward, and he could have easily put Watford 3-0 up just before Southampton scored. I think it was a really poor touch, wasn't it, just before Forrester came out, which allowed him to get close down the angles. But really impressive, considering he's not really started lately. I think maybe his last game he started was West Ham away. I can't really think when he started before that, but he's came back into the starting lineup. And was you impressed with him yesterday? Is he definitely ahead of Tom Cleverley now?
I wouldn't say he's ahead of Tom Cleverley. He's very hit and miss. I don't want to go too overboard because his performance was very good. You mentioned the opportunity he had there where he nearly scored. He could have actually, I think he had an opportunity second half as well, edge of the box. It was curling into the top corner, and I think Forster made a good save as well. It was very good, and I was very impressed. Does he deserve to start every game from now until the end of the season? No, I don't think so. I think you can maybe chop and change that position. You know, Kayembe's still at the club, Cleverley's still here. I think a lot of people are forgetting about Peter Atebo as well, just coming back from injury. So there's a lot of options in that area, a lot of squad depth, as with the attacking areas as well. So yes, it was a good performance, but actually, if I was Roy Hodgson, I'd look at it on a game-by-game basis. You know, which player suits this game? Does Kuchka, suit playing against Burnley? Does Atebo suit playing against Brentford? Stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say he has to start every game. Yes, the performance was great, but if I was Roy Hodgson, if I was managing Watford, I'd probably look at it on a game-by-game basis rather than, just saying, right, you're a must start now, great performance, go out there, you're 35 years old, go out there and run your socks off every week. I don't think it's going to work like that. But I think, as I said, we've got plenty of squad depth in the area, and I don't mind who plays really, as long as they work their asses off and and put in good performances. That's all I want as a Watford fan, really. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think he does edge it over Tom Cleverley at the moment. Only because last week I was saying all that Tom Cleverley does at the moment, he just runs around a lot, and you need more from him. You need him to break up play. You need to get him to make challenges, and you need for a midfielder. For me, you need to create opportunities, and we saw that with Kushka yesterday. He was getting stuck in, and he delivered a fantastic assist for that ball into a box for Hernandez. And James, talk to me about that finish for Hernandez as well. He actually scored with his standing foot, wasn't it? Somehow he managed to quickly maneuver his feet, and he just smashed that into the bottom of the corner. And it was a fantastic ball in the box, wasn't it? And I think we've seen this before with Kushka. I think he put a really good ball into a box away at Burnley, and João Pedro had his header saved. But he does have the quality over the ball to get a good delivery in the box, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And what I found funny was he basically put that ball in, Hernandez scored, and then straight after Hernandez scored, he basically didn't even go and celebrate. He just went to the ground.
I saw that.
And he just tied up his shoelaces. And I thought, are you not even happy you got an assist and Cucho scored? But yeah, what an absolutely beautiful ball that was. When that went in, I thought, that is, as an attacker, and Ben, I think you play striker for your local team, and You know, when someone puts a ball in like that, it's what you want as an attacker. You know, easy to strike, as you say.
Yeah.
Cucho had his standard foot on the floor. You know, the finish was just. I don't have the words for it really. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was Aguero-esque, it was Messi-esque, Ronaldo-esque, whatever you want to say.
You
You know,
say
really,
Aguero-esque, mate. Did you see the comments of Ben Foster after the game? He's actually compared Cucho Hernandez to Aguero. He said he's a bit like a Sergio Aguero kind of player. And I love that. Maybe it's just the South American flair of him. And the size of him. He's a small guy, isn't he? But he puts
yeah.
himself about. And
I
the
think
quality on the
his
ball.
Yeah, I think he's deceptively quick actually because he's got that low center of gravity, a little bit stocky but not too stocky. He's just, you know, he's definitely becoming, you know, one of my favourite Watford players, Ben. I think there's probably some space on my bedroom wall for another signed photo. So if Cucho Hernandez is interested and he wants to send James a signed shirt, maybe that would be very nice. But you know, going back to the finish, Ben, very important goal as well because at that point is putting Watford 2-0 up and, you know, right in front of the away fans as well. You know, it's just a perfect day out, really. You know, sunny, Watford fans were there making loads of noise. Superb finish, Aguero-esque, whatever you want to say. Superb, great cross by Kuchka. What more can you ask for, really? There's not much more I can say, really. If you haven't seen the goal, go on YouTube, watch the goal, and you understand where I'm coming from. Just superb stuff from Watford. And yeah, if only we could see that on a more regular basis, really.
Well, we might be soon, mate, because who knows? He scored a fantastic goal against Arsenal the other week with a bicycle kick. He's just scored that fantastic volley away at St Mary's Stadium. Is the goal of the season just going to be Hernandez for the options this year to pick from? Because he scored 3 fantastic goals. The opening day of the season, he scored that goal against Aston Villa where he curled it in. As it stands, James, what's your favourite goal of his this season?
So for me, unfortunately, I wasn't actually at that Aston Villa game. I was away on holiday in Devon, so I was very unlucky in that sense. But I was at the Arsenal game, and I think for me, the bicycle kick probably tops it. It depends really. You know, there's plenty of games left in the season to go. You know, he could score a tap in on the last day that keeps Watford in the Premier League, and that would probably be my favourite goal. But as it stands currently, with the 3 goals you listed, it's got to be that Arsenal goal. Yes, we lost the game, but the quality there was fantastic. You know, so impressive. I had such a good view of it as well from where I sit. So yeah, I don't know if you agree, Ben, but for me, it's the Arsenal bicycle kick.
It's a tough one. I loved his goal against Villa. See, I didn't go to the Arsenal game because I weren't feeling great, so I stayed at home. So I actually went to the Villa game, and to see how he bent that into the corner and for us to go on to win the game, that felt amazing. So
I mean, you
maybe
sit right behind that goal, Ben, as well.
Yeah, so maybe I'm going to edge towards the Aston Villa goal for that one. But it'd be interesting to know what the people who are watching their thoughts. If you think maybe the bicycle kick of Fernandez was better, or the volley away at Southampton, or the opening game of the season, do let us know. It'd be interesting to know your thoughts. But all I will say about Hernandez, though, we've waited a long time, James, to see him at Watford, haven't we? He's been out on loan for a long time, and we're finally getting to see the player that there was a lot of expectation about Cucho Hernandez, and it's just fantastic to see the rewards now, isn't it? The fans have been patient. Cucho's been patient, but now he's reaping the rewards, and it's just fantastic to see. So yeah, Watford actually went in at halftime 2-1 up. Southampton did score late into added on time with a goal at the far post from James Ward-Prowse free kick. Silly foul to give away, which it would have been so rewarding for Watford to go in at 2-0 up at that point of the game, or even 3-0 if Kushka actually finished up the other end of the game. But second half, James, I thought Watford managed the game really well. I thought game management came in really well. I thought we was slowing down the play when we needed to, especially in added on time. Like it was 7 minutes, but ended up being 10 minutes. Ben Foster almost took Brozier's eye out, didn't he? I mean, added on time as well. And did you see that, mate? That was disgusting.
Yeah, it was disgusting. I mean, I don't know if we need to add a graphic detail warning onto the pod, but yeah, you know, seeing them images come through is, yeah, it wasn't very nice. That's probably why the referee added on more time actually, because I think that happened just into the added time, didn't it? So the referee obviously added that on, but But yeah, to be honest, I think Ralph Hasenhüttl actually after the game, accused Watford of time wasting tactics, and we saw Arsenal actually at Vicarage Road time waste quite a lot. Kieran Tierney especially. I think everyone's seen that clip. But when it's you doing it as the winning team, you can understand. You can understand why they do it, because the 3 points for Watford in this case is vital, and ultimately as a player, as a manager, you want to do whatever you can within reason to get them 3 points. And if time wasting, in the last few minutes is necessary, I don't have a problem with it if it's Watford. Whereas obviously if it's the opposition, as fans, we get very frustrated. But yeah, in this instance, as Ben said, I think we managed the game very well. Yes, Southampton had a couple of chances, a couple of silly fouls by Dennis on the edge of our area. James Ward-Prowse having that free kick going just over the bar. It was dipping, but thankfully, that we rode our luck on the day. And actually, Ben, I don't know if he was going to come on to this, but Southampton did have a penalty call. The ball coming off, it did clearly, strike Kabasele's hand. For me, in the current rules and where the game is at the moment, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was given. But I do think, Ben, Watford do deserve a bit of luck, and I think we got our luck in that instance, because yes, it did strike his hand. He didn't deliberately stick his hand out. He didn't do it deliberately. He was just jumping in the air. If you've played football before, as you jump, you use your arms to get off the ground, and they do flail about a little bit, and that's what happened to Kabasele. So I think for me, Ben, I don't know about you, I'd say it wasn't a penalty, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was given, because I've seen plenty of them given this season.
Yes. For me, I didn't think it was a penalty, but that's because I'm a Watford fan. If that happened if it happened the other way round, yeah. I do think if Watford were playing a bigger side like a Chelsea, Manchester United, and Liverpool, that kind of decision would be given in the favour of the opposition, because I do think VAR decisions do favour the bigger teams, and because it was Southampton, it's not a massive club, and they probably felt, I can't really give that. But I do think Kabasele was a little bit silly. I know, James, you're saying about when you jump, you do have your arms in the air. But for me, Kabasele was kind of turning his back on it, so we didn't really know where his hands were. So that's what I would say about Kabasele. But I'm not going to be too critical on him, because he had a superb performance yesterday, James, didn't he? His first start for a very long time. I think he actually started. Did he start the game against Norwich City, where we lost 3-0? Did he?
I can't remember. My memory's not that good, Ben. And I'm a young guy, but yeah, my memory's not that good. But I think actually that was his. On the subject of Kabasele, I think that was his 100th Premier League appearance for Watford. So obviously, congratulations to him for that. And I thought he was really good. I mean, he is getting on a bit now. I think he's 31 years old, Kabasele, but I thought the pace he showed at times yesterday, some of the recovery runs he made, some of the tackles,
the recovery run on Brozier was brilliant, wasn't it? Brozier looked like he had a yard on him. Kabasele, just that pace, I don't know where that came from, but he managed to get past him, and he out-muscled him as well, didn't he? And managed to get the ball away, and that was fantastic to see, because Watford have that pace in that back line sometimes. At the start of the season, anyway, not so much now. We've got Samir and Kamara along there, but it's refreshing to see Kabasele coming out from the cold and actually perform to a really high standard.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think for me, the question now is, who, if you are to play Kabasele more consistently, who drops out of the back line? You've got Samir, who's come in and done relatively well, I'd say. Cathcart has been a consistent performer this season. The back four as a whole have conceded a lot of goals. Even though, we sit here and say they played well at times. So, who drops out for me? Obviously, Cathcart dropped out yesterday. I wouldn't be opposed to Kabasele playing more games instead of Craig Cathcart potentially. So I think for me, there's definitely a shout to be had there. And whether Roy Hodgson, can trust Kabasele, because we all know, he does have a mistake in him. If that penalty was given, Ben, we'd be having a different conversation here today.
It could only happen to Kabasele, couldn't it, if it was given?
No, I think with him, he's a very clumsy player, isn't he? He's very lanky, very clumsy. But it was, overall, apart from that penalty shout, it was a very good performance from him. And yeah, as I said, I wouldn't be opposed if he played a few more games this season.
would you start him at Liverpool away? Only because you just said about how he can be clumsy. You know how Liverpool like to run at you at speed and keep the ball close to their feet and run past you. Do you think Cavaselli's the kind of player you might want to play in that game, or would you want to stick to the tried and trusted of Crave Cathcart, even though you'd lose the pace, wouldn't you, if you play Crave Cathcart? It's difficult, isn't it?
It's
Or
difficult
neither. You go
because
Truth Econ.
no, I think with Liverpool, whoever you put in the back line, it's going to be
They've
very
got the
difficult.
work cut out.
Watching Salah at Vicarage Road this season, man, I don't know if he was at the game, but Salah, for me, was the best player I've seen at Vicarage Road this season. He was just absolutely, he was phenomenal to watch, actually, really, really good. And whether you got Cabaselli in there, Cathcart in there, Sirielta in there, you're going to struggle. Even a top team struggle. The Man Cities, the Tottenhams, the Chelseas, they all struggle, against Liverpool's front three as well. So actually, I'm not actually even going to answer your question because I think it's completely irrelevant. Whoever you chuck in there, they're going to struggle. But I think Cabaselli is definitely I mean, he's obviously more suited to play in lower side in the league. But yeah, actually, Ben, in this instance, I refuse to answer your question on that one.
All right, I'll answer it. I think I prefer Craig Cathcart against Liverpool. I could just see Cabaselli giving away a penalty, but I do like Cabaselli. I like what he brings to Watford. Maybe after the Liverpool game, I'd like to see Cabaselli maybe come back in. But for Liverpool away, I would want Craig Cathcart back in. But yeah, like you say, James, that VAR went in our favour for once this time round, and Watford just kept the ball up the other end of the pitch in those final few minutes, didn't they? It was kept it in the went out for a corner. We kept it in the corner. Actually, I did think when Josh King came on, James, I did think Joshua King did make a good impact off the bench, and he looked like he held the ball up well. He was running into the box as well. That's the kind of freshness that you need, isn't it? And he performed to quite a high level when he came on. It's what we needed. He kept the ball in the corner. And do you think that was the right substitution to make with Josh King coming on? Because he did do well.
Yeah, he did do well, but again, like with Kuchka, I'm not going to go too overboard because Joshua King was obviously very clearly given a specific job to do, and that was to try and help the team not to concede another goal, and using his hold-up play and strength to do that. I think he's played really well as almost a target man, if you will, this season. Not like Troy Deeney, where he'd head it on constantly and try and beat the defender, but I think his overall hold-up play, especially with his feet, is really, really good. And yeah, it was a good performance by Josh King. I think he was on for 15, 20 minutes, and yes, it was very good. Was it enough to start the next game? No. I still want more from him. I want more goals. Ultimately, from my striker, I want much more goal contributions than Josh King's offered this season. But yeah, it was really good, and hopefully it continues like that. And actually, Cucho Hernandez was an impact sub, and now he's starting more games. Joshua King was starting lots of games, and now he's almost becoming that impact sub. And I don't really see a problem with that. If that's his role until the end of the season, and if he can help Watford play in that way, I'm more than happy to see Josh King come off the bench and make an impact like he did against Southampton.
Maybe that's what he needs as well, because his spot was kind of guaranteed, wasn't it, under Claudio Ranieri and Cisco and Roy Hodgson. But lately, performances hasn't been great. He has picked up a knock, which has seen him come out of the starting lineup as well. He came off against Wolves because of a knock as well. But when he has got into the areas, he hasn't looked like scoring lately. So maybe a time on the bench might actually help him a little bit to push himself a little bit more. And like we said, he did have a bit of an impact off the bench yesterday. So maybe we might see that from Joshua King in the next couple of games before he actually gets a start again. But yeah, Watford ran out 2-1 winners away at Southampton, a fantastic victory. We are level on points with Everton now. Everton do have a better goal difference than Watford, and they do have games in hand. But Everton, they've got to win those games, and they are really struggling at the moment. Watford don't have a game for 3 weeks now. We were due to play Everton next weekend, but obviously they got through to the next round of the FA Cup after beating Boreham Wood. So our fixture has been rearranged for. I'm not sure if they've rearranged it just yet, James, have they? But it will be later on in the season. It will probably be a midweek game, maybe. But yes, and then it's international week, isn't it, James? I think it's not. My birthday's the 28th of March, and it's always around that week where there's always international friendlies and that. And I think I've seen that Emmanuel Dennis has been called up for Nigeria. He's actually going to go travel and play for them this time. They've put in their request earlier enough for Watford to accept it. That he's going to fly over there and play for Nigeria. I think they're playing their double header against Ghana. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on and see if he actually plays and features. But yeah, 3 weeks until we play Liverpool now, and we won't do a preview of the Liverpool game because it is so far away. Maybe we'll do one a couple of days beforehand. But just quickly, James.
Yes.
One question before we go, I'll ask you: who do you think is going to finish 17th in the Premier League? And how many points will they get this season? Because if I'm honest, it's going to be a low total this season to stay in the Premier League.
Okay, so who's going to finish 17th? I've just got the Premier League table up in front of me now, and really looking at it, Brentford are out of the equation for me. I think if Brentford win one more game, they are pretty much safe. So I think for me, it's between Leeds, Everton, Watford, and Burnley. Who finishes 17th? You know, as a biased Watford fan, I am going to go out there and say Watford because, as Ben said earlier, yes, you know, fantastic for Everton. Woohoo, they have the games in hand. But they do actually have to go and win them. And that is something they've not been able to do this season. And actually, you know, they've got such tough fixtures coming up. Yes, obviously, we're going to play them at some point at Vicarage Road. But I think they've got to play, you know, 4 or 5 of the top 6, you know, coming up in the next few games. So Everton, it's not getting any easier for them. Leeds.
So their fixtures coming up quickly, James. Just sorry to butt in quickly, but Thursday night they're actually at home to Newcastle, and you know the runner from Newcastle are on at the moment, and that's at Goodison Park. And then after that, they've got West Ham away, Manchester United at home, Liverpool away, Chelsea at home, Leicester away, Brentford at home, and then Arsenal away at the last game of the season. Obviously, we've got to play them as well once it's been rearranged as well. But that's a terrible run of fixtures, isn't it? Especially when you're down at the bottom and their results have been really poor lately, Everton. And I don't really. Maybe we could stay up. Am I being silly to think that, James? But looking at that, I just think if we pick up some results away from home and we win 3 out of 4 at home, I think we can stay up.
I absolutely agree, and you know we are on the same point as Everton at the moment. So if we are going to go out there and presume, let's say you know they might win 1 game in hand, they've got 3 games in hand on us. Let's say they're going to win 1 of them, they will only still be 3 points ahead of us. So basically, if we get 4 more points in Everton between now and the end of the season, we're essentially safe. And you know if it stays as it is and they lose the rest of the games in hand, all Watford have to do essentially is beat Everton at Vicarage Road. And we're well on our way to being safe. And you know, there's lots of hypothetical situations going on here. You know, they could go on and win their 3 games in hand, which could happen. You know, we never know what's going to happen in football. I'd like to think that wouldn't happen. But you know, suddenly after getting that win at Southampton, you know, the possibility of Watford staying in the Premier League has gone up drastically, in my opinion. And you know, as Ben read out the fixtures there. They're absolutely awful. If that was Watford, I'd be really, really concerned. And you know, listening to you know how angry their fans are at Goodison Park, and you know the way they're reacting towards the players, there's literally no connection. Like Watford at times this season, I don't think the Everton fans really feel a connection with their team at the moment, and that's obviously a good thing, you know, for Watford going forward. So yeah, in answer to your question, Ben, you know, at the moment, coming off the back of that win and feeling positive, I think Watford can very easily stay up. And you know, Burnley you have to mention as well, because you know they're always going to be a threat down there. Sean Dyche, you know, always manages some of his magic, and you know he's kept Burnley in the Premier League for a very long time now on a limited budget. But I do think we have the attacking talent to score enough goals to keep us in it. So for me, Watford are going to be the team that finishes 17th this season.
I hope so, mate. All I'll say is I'm absolutely gutted that our game's been rearranged with Everton because it's the right time to play Everton at the moment. Us just picking up a victory away at Southampton, Everton going in with terrible run of form, but yet they're playing an FA Cup quarter final against Palace, which they're not going to win the FA Cup. So it's a bit of a pointless game for them, really, when really we could have played them and got this game out of the way with. But what a game this is going to be. Watford against Everton. It could be a relegation decider. I think that's where you're going, James, really. If
Yeah.
like whoever wins that basically will have confidence going into the rest of the games and you'll get the advantage, especially with the teams both on level points. Whoever wins that game will be 3 points above the other teams, and you're basically saying, see you later. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see when that rearranged game is. Hopefully, I want it pretty soon. I don't want it to be towards the end of the season, just in case Everton do pick up a bit of form. But you'd want them to come to Vicarage Road pretty soon, but maybe not after the Liverpool game because we might take a bit of a hiding at Liverpool. But you never know. I thought we was going to concede 2 or 3 at Old Trafford and we got a clean sheet. So never say never. But yeah, that's it for me and James this week, everyone. Thank you for everyone who's been watching on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Tell your friends about the Voices of Vic. Tell them that you can listen to them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other platforms available. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Me and James will be back to probably do a preview of the Liverpool game. Hopefully, we'll get Mike involved as well, and he can come along as well. Be good to get him back on. But yeah, see you soon, guys. Stay safe, and come on, you Orns.